Yay, let's do pod.
Hi.
Hi.
This is Steve from Retro Man Blog, and welcome to this latest edition of Retrosonic podcast. And you just heard the great track Scandinistas from a new band, Gatuplan, and their album, which is, I'm going to struggle here, so I'm going to introduce my guest. It is Gatuplan's frontman, Inge Johansson. Hi, Inge. How are you?
Very good, very good. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. And I quickly introduced you first before trying to pronounce the album. So tell us the title in lovely Swedish.
The title of the album is Kampen Går Vidare. It's a tongue twist for anyone who's not Swedish, of course. And it would translate to The Struggle Continues in English. That's that's the title of life.
Yeah, a pretty apt title for these days, isn't it? But and Gatuplan, I know it's like it's a street level, isn't it? It says it's like a
yeah.
Tell us why you decided on that name. Is it just sort of more of like the sort of, I know it's a good punk rock album. Is it that sort of street punk? Is that where you're coming from?
Yes, and okay, this is a deep cut, but since you're from England, you know what I'm talking about when I'm gonna pick up the reference to where I got the name from. One of my favorite TV shows ever is The Young Ones from, you should know that one.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, of course. I'm, Rick Mayall and Adrian Edmondson is just as big of gods for me as Ozzy Osbourne or Jello Biafra. You can compare them easily because they came in a time in my life where you start to figure out who you are and what you like and all that. And in the first episode of The Young Ones, they're watching a TV show for young adults called Nosing Around, about social problems among young people in England at the time. And they have this section in Nosing Around called Street Level, where they go out and interview young people on the street, young adults, about what they find wrong with society or problems. And everything they talk about, the only thing they want to do is to be able to drink in pubs when they're 16. They talk about unemployment, war, reproductive rights, whatever. But I thought it was so funny, they're doing this what do young people want? Yeah, they just want to drink in pubs. And it's a street level. And I was like, so that was actually where I got it from in the first place, Gatuplan, street level. So it's a direct reference to The Young Ones.
I see. So that's interesting, actually, because it's a Swedish language album, and it's a Swedish title, a Swedish band. So I didn't imagine that you'd have got the title from a very, very English, comedy institution.
Yes, I am The Young Ones. I am Filthy Rich and Cat Flap. I am Bottom. I am The New Statesman. That's just as much of my cultural heritage as the Ramones,
Obviously, most people over here in the UK would know you from your time with International Noise Conspiracy, and probably then in the States they might know you more as with Against Me. And this is, and you've, you know, we're going to obviously touch on various aspects of your musical career, but you know, you've sort of played bass or also guitar and in quite a few bands over the years. But this is your first sort of, I say it's not really a solo project, is it? Because it's a band, I guess. But it's your first band where you're taking center stage. Am I right in that?
Yeah, it is a solo project in the sense that I wrote the entire album, and then I had the demos down from phone recordings at home, and then I scouted people that I would have a good time making music with and who would get it instantly and could work fast with me. So it's a solo project, but it would not have happened without a backing band, so to speak.
Sure.
But so it's sort of in between, and instead of doing it as a solo artist, I don't think Inge Johansson would be a very good punk rock solo name. You know, it's too late to change at this point. I mean, I could have been called, I don't know, Rusty Blades or whatever, but I could have done something like that. But so I decided to give it a little bit like how Imperial State Electric is Nicke Andersson's solo project, but it appears as a band, and they're a band live, and they're like a lineup of I had that as my blueprint, so to speak.
It's a good idea, isn't it? Because it gives you the best of both worlds, doesn't it? You're calling the shots, but you've got that atmosphere and feeling of a band, you know.
Yeah, and also everyone that's involved, they're like very busy people and very involved in music in other ways. So I was just so happy to get them on board. It started out basically as a need of just, I'm gonna write songs and see where this goes. And then I got like a little kind of a kick out of it. And now I'm writing my follow-up album, and yeah, good times.
Great. Well, it's a fantastic album, and the good thing is it's sort of, I mean, we played a track from the album before, with one of your first singles.
Thank you.
And it sort of goes through various genres of punk, new wave, and power pop, and even sort of there's a bit of ska. There's a lot of different influences, you know, a bit of not so much rap, but you've got a lot of different styles all crammed into the album, and it's a really well produced record. It's one of those albums that you put it on and it just blasts out, no matter what volume you've got it on. You know, it's a great sounding record, you know, as you can hear from the first track, you know. So, I mean, were you really pleased with how it came out? You know, were you happy with the finished result?
Oh yeah, I'm super stoked on it. It got as good as it possibly could get with that kind of, you know, you're on a restricted budget, and I paid the musicians as well, and I paid for most of the recording myself, and for the sleeve and the design and the whole thing. But where I recorded it in Dustward Studios in Stockholm, that guy is like an old punker, old mod kind of guy. He was in this band, Henry Fiat's Open Sore, great band, and he gets it. Yeah. All the musicians, they, you know, basically just lay down, like in a couple of takes, everything's done. For the sleeve, my buddy Doug Dean, he's done stuff mainly for like Anti-Flag and bands like that. He's like really good. He was like, so like, what kind of sleeves do you like? And I was like, I like record sleeve that looks like the way the music sounds.
Yeah.
And it like looks like some kind of like left-wing poster that's been like glued to a wall, but it's been sort of faded in a way. And I'm so pleased with the whole package, the sleeve, the production value, the musicians, everything, and even my own contribution on like, yeah, all right, these songs are okay. Like I did that. Like the only thing that, like, because I'm a bass player now, I'm sitting there, I could have done that part better, but that's always the case. Yeah. But apart from that, I'm very happy about the album. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Jag har inga cash, för jag har inget jobb. Jag får aldrig något jobb, för jag har inget CV. Jag får aldrig något CV, för jag får aldrig något jobb. Nu står jag här utan cash och jobb och CV. Det måste får inget lån. Jag får inget lån för jag har inga cash. Nu står jag här utan bostad, lån och cash. Det måste vara något fel på det här systemet som aldrig någonsin ger mig en chans, men ändå är jag problemet. Jag säger Chumbawamba, vad ska det bli av med mitt liv? Vad ska det bli av med mitt liv? Vad ska det bli av med mitt liv? Jag mår dåligt så jag söker vård. Jag får ingen vård, bara en massa piller. Nu mår jag dåligt för jag har käkat massa piller. Och jag står här och tänker att
Just before we go on to some of your other musical choices, can you tell us a little bit about your bandmates? Because I know sometimes if it is a solo project, people tend to get left in the background a little bit. But who have you got working with you?
Let's see. The other vocalist, Anna Philipsson, she used to sing in my old punk band Knugen Faller. She was the singer in that band. She's this amazing raw talent. Her music just like flows so naturally in a way. It's one of those rare occasions because she's not really in a band or in the scene or whatever, but she came down to the studio and knocked the album out in one night's take, you know. And, you know, then she walks home and takes care of, you know, the kids and whatever. You know, she's just like comes in, a vulgar display of power, and then leaves. And it's just like the best thing you ever heard. You know? So I was very lucky to have her. And then the drummer percussionist is, his name is Joni Happala. He is the drummer of a very famous Swedish punk band called De Lyckliga Kompisarna. They've been around since the late 80s, early 90s. And because he's also like this rude boy, skinhead kind of guy, you know, that kind of, he comes from that scene a little bit. But he's the percussionist in Sweden's biggest music television show. Like, it's like a Dancing with the Stars kind of thing where they have a live band and celebrities.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he plays percussion in that band. Because he went to Cuba in the 90s and you stayed and learned how to play Latin percussion. And he's like one of the best Latin percussionists in Sweden, maybe the best. But he's also like one of the fastest punk drummers as well. So he's like perfect in my world, you know? And he loves ska and reggae and skinhead music. So great.
Well, that's good because you get some of that influence in the album, don't you? There is quite a ska influence running through the record, you know, on quite a few of the tracks, you know, so that it definitely shows.
Yes, and thank you for noticing that. But he would say stuff like in the studio, like, so for this song, I'm going to tune my snare drum to where the Specials had it on Concrete Jungle. It's like, great. Like, you get it right away. So, yeah, I got him. And then Fredrik Eriksson plays guitar. He plays guitar in a band called No Fun At All, like an old skate punk band from Sweden. But he also used to play in a band called 2.8, and they were great. And he was in Alonso and Fast 3, a band that I had. So I got to know him that way. And the other guitar player is Simon Dahlberg. He's also in the Lyckliga Kompisarna with Joni. He is a fast punk guitarist, but he's also he plays a lot of Latin and salsa and flamenco and acoustic and stuff like that. And he's a guitar teacher. So I was like, okay, you know, this will be great. Everyone's like 10 times better than me at everything they're doing. So, and
you're the boss.
I'm the boss. I mean, I got them together. I can take credit for that. And then we have Lars Ekman on keys. He's been like in punk bands and rock bands in Stockholm, and he's easygoing and he gets it. That's it. That's us.
Well, it's great. And as I said, we'll be playing a couple more tracks from the album throughout this episode. I'll put a feature up at retromanblog.com to go along with this podcast with links to where you can buy the album. And it's certainly well worth investing in. And
Thank you.
Look forward to hearing some more tracks. And let's go back to the very beginning. So, you know, what was your earliest musical memory? You know, I mean, when you were a kid or something, was there something that you actually remember that sparked you off on this musical journey?
Oh, yeah. There was always music in my in my house because my dad is a guitar player and he played in a band back then. So it was accessible in that way, but it didn't hit me until 1984 when they started showing like half an hour a week or 1 hour a week on Swedish public television. We only had 2 channels at the time. They started to show like pop videos and rock videos. And 1984 was like the golden era for it, you know? And then I heard Kiss for the first time. They had just released a single called Heavens on Fire from their then current album Animalize, which is not one of their strongest in my opinion. But seeing that video, hearing that song, the drums, that guitar riff that's kind of like it wants to do more, and heavy drums and long hair, and Gene Simmons had like a bass that looked like an axe and, you know, burning in the video. And I was 7 at the time. I realized that I like music now. It was just like, it's so clear to me how that happened. Like I was like, okay, heavy metal, that's what I like. And just to make a side note, but a long story short, in Sweden in the 80s, we had a very moral panic, just like in the UK with like video nasties and stuff like that. We had the same thing here, and also like the negative influence of like hard rock and stuff like heavy metal on young children and youth. So I was met with a lot of hostility from teachers, from grown-ups for liking this music, and I had no idea what the songs were about. I couldn't speak a word of English or anything, but the music just filled me with a positive vibe. I got happy from listening to this music. So I could not connect what was so wrong with it when it made me so happy. So maybe I became a punk already at that point. I don't know.
All right, well, let's hear that, shall we? Let's hear Kiss.
Yeah, let's headbang.
This is Kiss and Heaven's on Fire.
Yay!
How about becoming a musician? What was there something that sparked you off from that transition to say, I want to form a band, I want to become a musician, I want to make music now? Was there something that again sparked you off on that?
Yeah, definitely. If we continue from Kiss, when I'm like 7 years old and you make cardboard guitars and all that, I made a transition from them to like more British things, like, you know, Iron Maiden, and I came into that kind of stuff like late 80s. I was 10. That was the music that spoke to me. I grew up very isolated. I grew up in a small village. 500 people lived there, and it was all like, you know, it's a church, a factory, and ice hockey, and that's kind of it. And I was something different. And with music, I could sort of connect and travel in my head.
Yeah.
And so metal kept me going. And in the early 90s, a wave of like the death metal thing swept through Sweden and the rest of the world. And the first show I ever went to was a death metal show. I went to see Entombed and some other bands in a school cafeteria. It was awesome. And I liked all of that. And it also appealed to me as a 13, 14-year-old outcast. You know, I didn't really fit in, and I felt a sense of being an outsider, not fitting in socially, not like fitting in school, being kind of young and awkward and all that. And the death metal thing appealed to me. The metal thing appealed to me. Thrash, Metallica, all that kind of stuff. But then I heard The Exploited for the first time in my life. And that just turned everything around for me, because they have just released The Massacre. I think that album, that's an album that looks like a thrash metal album, the sleeve. It's produced like a thrash metal album, but the songs are punk songs, punk structures. Riffs are repetitive, and the drum beats are like, and then the vocals are cranked up. I couldn't understand the words. It was a good thing that it came with like a lyric sheet and all that. And
couldn't either.
No, yeah. I always wonder, like, how do you understand Waddy in the UK? Like, it's like Scottish aggressive hedonist that is, you know. And the songs were called like Police Shit, Fuck Religion. Isn't even the song called Don't Pay the Poll Tax? And it kind of, it cued me into what was going on. But that sense of being that direct and the music being so aggressive, it was made for me. So that The Exploited made all my metal and hard rock music obsolete for a long time. Like I found something different. Yeah. So that album, Exploited, The Massacre, thank you very much. It destroyed my life.
well, let's hear the band that set you on the road to ruin then. This is The Exploited and the title track from the album. This is The Massacre.
Fantastic.
So you're saying the Exploited influenced you to become a musician as such, you know, but you obviously known as a bass player. I mean, was there something that influenced you to say, right, I want to be a bass player?
Yeah, for some reason I was never really attracted to playing guitar. You know, I don't know where that came from, but that was also because of punk, because bass was very upfront, because a lot of bands, just like The Exploited or Discharge or I said Anti-Nowhere League, another band that I really like. A lot of those bands, the old school Sex Pistols, there's one bass, one guitar, and one drummer. That's what it is. And you have a singer. So all musicians do make room for each other in the songs. And I could start to listen to bass lines, and with The Exploited, it was perfect because all of them were like, it's like a box on your fretboard. It's like, there's like, and then you're like, I can figure this. I can do this. And they're like, fuck you. What you tell me? That, you know, perfect. So that all of a sudden I started to listen. I could hear bass in a different way than I had done in very intricate metal music. And yeah, it was just accessible, easy, and just sounded cool.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think punk did bring out some fantastic bass players. And I recently did a podcast with Buddy Ascot of the Chords, and we talked about, it was based on the rhythm section. So we picked our favourite drummers and bassists and bass lines and things over the years. And I was a bass player, and I was influenced by people because you could hear the bass, like J.J. Bennell of the Stranglers. You had Peter Hook, New Order. You had all these bands and then there was a band
Bruce Foxton
of the Jam.
Yeah, he to me, with Noise Conspiracy and all that, that was extremely influential. His style.
Yeah, but you could hear the bass, and it was influential, And I think we also picked you as one of our favourite bass players, I'm
honoured.
Yeah, well, and it was Up for Sale. We love the bass intro to Up for Sale because, again, I think there was a very much Jam influence on that track in particular,
You don't say.
Yeah, well, just a subtle one,
40 days and 40 nights since our last got me by. Hey now, what have we done? Money's on the lookout for number one.
I know it's difficult, but pick a track to illustrate one of your favourite bassists.
All right. Well, it's a go-to for a lot of bass players, I guess, but probably my favorite bass player when it comes to just sound and the way of complementing guitar and drums, that's Geezer Butler of Black Sabbath. Another British influence in my life. I'm very British for being a Swede who has lived in the US, but well, yeah, there you go. But Black Sabbath was also, I got into punk and I listened to all those like really, really cool, bass players and like fundamental, as you said, I was listening to Rainy. I was listening to, Raining in Discharge. Then I was listening to Bruce Foxton. I was listening to Peter Hook in, Joy Division, Simon Gallup in The Cure. People like that who played linear, cool things.
Yeah.
Paul Simonon of The Clash, of course, like hearing that kind of dub thing. And I started to learn how to play those things. And for some reason, in my teenage years, I rediscovered heavy metal again and went back to the roots because I became a bit of a musical archaeologist, as we all become. And I rediscovered Black Sabbath when I was a teenager. And I had learned how to play bass a little bit. And then I heard like Geezer Butler for the first time again. And I was like, I want to be that guy. Can I be that guy? So... with the International Noise Conspiracy, he was always like my main influence, and always, having a drummer like Ludwig, as we had in that band, was a pretty solid guy to sort of lean on when it comes to playing a bit. As Black Sabbath, I think they're the greatest rhythm section in rock history. Bill Ward and Geezer Butler. A song like Iron Man, where the song starts galloping and they pick it up. You have to be a tight together band in a room to pull something like that together in the 70s. And Geezer Butler and Bill Ward really sort of redefined my idea of like what bass and drums can do. I want to play like Geezer. Like I play the riff, the guitar riff almost as the guitar, but I like to throw in those jazzy runs in between that also kind of mirror the vocal line and all that, what he did. And if I have to pick a song, that would be like of all Black Sabbath songs, and that's kind of impossible, but War Pigs.
Generals gathered in their masses, just like witches at black masses. Evil minds that plot destruction, sorcerer of death's construction. In the fields of bodies burning, as the war machine keeps turning. Death and hatred to mankind, poisoning their brainwashed minds. Oh Lord, yeah.
So, Inge, let's talk about your first band, your early bands. You said you were sort of out in the sticks a little bit in Sweden. How did you get together locally with people? Did you find other like-minded musicians in your local town?
When I was 14, I started a new school in town, not out in the sticks. This was like 1990, and it was a different time. It was the previous millennium, and back then it was very much like it's sports or music or church or something like that, and a couple of friends in school, and they told me they had a band and that they played like some thrash metal and some punk, and I barely knew what that was, but I kind of hooked up with them and we started a band. And I was 15 when I played my first ever show. We played maybe a set of like 6 songs at the end of the semester before summer break. And we had been practicing for like half a year before that. And we were pretty good for being a bunch of like 15, 16-year-olds. And yeah, we actually played one exploited song. I remember that. We did Dead Cities. We did that one. That was my first band. We were called Stand Still. That was our name. And then we had this, and we lasted for about a year or whatever. But I remember just that first show, being on stage and playing this loud music with electric guitars and drums and having a PA and this music that was fast coming at all these clueless people. All of a sudden, feeling of empowerment and the feeling of rush and feeling of we know something you don't know anything about, and you're going to have to relate to it for like 20 minutes. That feeling, it felt so good. I can't, like, I still remember it. I still remember, like, how important that moment in my life was of standing and performing live music. And I counted, like, not that long ago. Like, I've played over 1,500 shows in my life, and still the same. I love going out on stage, and that moment of, like, anticipation when the climaxes with, like, meeting the audience and the electricity of it's the biggest cliche and everybody's talked about it, but I'm so hooked to it.
So let's pick one of your first bands. I mean, some early recordings and bands. When was the first band that you sort of actually got together and you got into a studio and got a record out? And how did that feel at the time?
Yeah, that was a band called Totalt Jävla Mörker. Also a Swedish tongue twist for you. Totalt Jävla Mörker means total fucking darkness. That was the name of the band. Best band name in the history of band names. And we were actually, it was a few years after that first band that I talked about. I was out of a band for a couple of years. The 90s kind of sucked for me, It was just, it was terrible. Like, no one in my school had heard of the Specials. They were into, like, Nirvana and Stone Temple Pilots and stuff like that. I had nothing. And now I see that stuff is, like, coming back, especially in the US. And I'm like, oh, man. I'm like, can I stop it somehow? Or what's going to happen? But when that kind of, when that died down, there was like a brief, like, hardcore wave in Sweden that was pretty big with bands like Refused and Abinanda and stuff like that. And then older Swedish hardcore bands had some kind of a second wind, like bands like Anticimex and like legendary hardcore stuff. I hooked up with those guys who were, like, really into that new wave of hardcore, like Refused, as I mentioned, and some American bands that sort of baggy pants, aggressive metal hardcore, but they also had this, like, fascination for, like, black metal and stuff like that way before it became a hipster thing. We kind of the name Total Fucking Darkness is from a demo by Cradle of Filth. I think it's called Total Fucking Darkness. That's where we took it from. And we wanted to combine the aggression of that metal hardcore thing with that sort of militant, sort of vegan, straight edge attitude that was very, like, popular at the time, but mix it with some kind of chaotic black metal thing that made it sound very like threatening, or at least that's how we dreamed about it, and then like base it around like a discharge, like D-beat thing. That was the first band that I ever recorded and released anything with, a 7-inch, and then I did 2 albums with them. And I want to play a song from the second album that we did together. It's called, the band is called Totalt Jävla Mörker, Total Fucking Darkness. And the song is called Under Sions kalla stjärna, which means under the cold stars of Zion. And it's actually me and the other singer, Anders, on vocals. So you can hear me. I'm not playing bass. I'm just singing, quote unquote.
That blew my eardrums out.
Yeah, that's the idea. That's the purpose of it. And that was the first band that I actually recorded with. And I was in that band before I joined Noise Conspiracy and all that. So I came sort of more from that angle of punk, so to speak. And that band actually, we toured a lot in Scandinavia. And we even got invited to play, the Hultsfred Festival, which is like a legendary big festival here. And I do think it was the fact that we were like the only D-beat thrash hardcore punk band that actually we were smart enough to like write the press kit and send out CDs to journalists, or it wasn't blogs around at the time, but people who wrote about music. And we actually connected with bookers and festivals, and instead of just keeping it within the preaching to the choir, it seemed like a lot of people, like festivals and in Sweden or venues or hip clubs, wanted to book us to get this freak show, and we always delivered. Like, we drew people. People came to see us. We had a fan base. Yeah. We were always like the kind of nicest, most like polite people coming into a venue like this, and just like talking like this and being like very, very, and like you barely noticed us when we rolled in our gear and sat up, and we barely ever spoke, kind of that kind of band. And then, the place packed, and then we like, poof, like hit you in the face. And then we sat there backstage like, all right, like, I think we're out of soda now. Oh, too bad. Okay, that's just, that was the first band that I ever recorded with. And I'm very happy that when they packed it in 3 years ago, 2007, because that was like, no, 17, sorry. It was a 20-year anniversary of the first 7-inch. Yeah. So they did a tour in Scandinavia, and they invited me back to do the farewell tour. Yeah. And it was the best. So much fun. Yeah. Just like reconnecting with old mates, having a good time on the road, doing really good shows. It was just a bundle of joy to do that. And I'm so happy that things, when you break up a band, it can be like, a divorce or something like that. But we had a blast. We had a great time, and everybody was in it for the same reasons. And wow, yeah. So I've been very lucky in that sense, Yeah,
that's great. So then you mentioned Refused, Swedish hardcore legends. And then you went on to join International Noise Conspiracy, which was Refused frontman Dennis's new band, which again became really popular over here in the UK. You know, there was a big wave of Swedish music coming over, like the Soundtrack of Our Lives. There was Randy. There was obviously the Hives at the time, the Cardigans, and International Noise Conspiracy. So,
yeah.
How did you hook up with Dennis? And tell us about your time with International Noise Conspiracy.
I had seen Refused a couple of times because remember the first band that I talked about that played at school and all that? The drummer from that band, he ended up the guitar player in Refused around 95, 96. And then we reconnected. I was living up in the sticks far up north, and Refused were based in Umeå, about like 2.5 hours south. It doesn't sound like much, but like geographically, but culturally and socially, it was a very big, like two different worlds, basically. And they had a very, very thriving and influential hardcore scene down there. Still, you want to be where things happen. So I moved to Umeå. I had met Dennis at a couple of occasions at Refused shows or whatever shows, or just talked and said hello and introduced myself and all that. And then I moved down to Umeå in 97, summer of 97, and it's like that's like the best thing I ever done in my life was moving to Umeå. I have to say, like it was, you know, that's where my life started. It's a small town. It's like 130,000 people, something like that. But it had like a university, a Volvo factory, a hockey team, a hardcore scene. It had it all, you know. It was an animal rights movement. I got to know Dennis around that time because we always went to the same shows, like and always hung out at the same, you know, cafes or whatever. I think we connected that in the sense that both of us liked a lot of like 60s music. I had sort of dipped my toe into that. I was a big Beatles fan. I still am, and he introduced me to like the Small Faces and stuff like that I hadn't heard before. And we started talking about like stuff like that we liked, you know, Small Faces, The Who, The Jam. And at that point, Refused they were kind of imploding, and they were in Sweden, they were massive. In Europe, they were sort of a smaller club size band as far as I can gather from right now. In the US, they were nothing but well connected with people. And Dennis wanted to do something that was more connected to 60s tradition of mod R&B beat mixed up with punk. And also during that time, that was the time when the Nuggets box set, the CD box set was released, like 98, 99, when that music had a revival, and we tapped into that as well and decided to try to make our version of that kind of music. Yeah. And that's how we started. That was in 98. That's when we started. Yeah, that's right.
And such a great live band at the time. I mean, the dynamics were sort of fantastic, you know, great live act. But you've chosen a track from your last album. Yeah, I did, because I do believe that album was never really properly released in the US or Europe, and didn't have any backing, and didn't have any, like, it went pretty unnoticed. But so that's why I kind of just wanted to, instead of playing like Smash It Up or something that everyone's already heard, I want to play something that's I think it's very true to our sound, but a bit more developed, and from a time where we still like tried really hard and wanted to push things forward. So here's Hiroshima Mon Amour.
Burn like the temperature of the sun. The fire
Yeah, great track. And I think you're right. It was an album which had sort of didn't get enough credit, really, I don't think. You know, it was... I mean, I know in England we're very cynical, the music press, about foreign bands. You know, I mean, there was that... It becomes fashionable at sometimes, like there was with the Swedish Invasion, that we called it, which you were a big part of. And then they go on to the next thing, and that's it, you know. And I think that's probably why I think the album was probably released just after, in England, the music press had moved on to the next trend and the next fad, which was a big shame, you know.
Yeah, it's a shame. The UK is really hard to break from an outsider. I mean, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, they got us like from the start. And we were way bigger in the US and way bigger in Australia than we ever were in the UK. We could always do good shows in London, and we could do like Reading and Leeds and Download. But as soon as you start to tour the land in the UK and it's not like university towns or whatever, it can be pretty rough around the edges. You know, you become spoiled when you have success in other places, and all of a sudden, like, you have to sort of scale down again. That was always the UK for us in some ways, you know. So
So you started a record label with Dennis as well?
Yes, we started a record label. Yeah, we did. And we had it was called Ny Våg, which means new wave. And we basically started that. Dennis started it, and I helped out once it got rolling, because we had such a great punk scene in Umeå at the time. We had the Lost Patrol Band, we had Regulations, we had The Vicious, we had Masshysteri, we had Knugenfaller, UX Vileheads. Great punk bands. We tried to do sort of a Bloodstains across Sweden, but right here and now. You know, it was kind of a retro thing, very conceptual scene. But it was such a great vibe in the town, like so many good bands, and it was a positive exchange of attitude and energy, and everybody came to see each other's bands play. And we started to feel like we could generate a new generation of musicians and kids playing music. And that's why Ny Våg started the record label. And we also started doing club nights, Ny Våg club nights, where like usually me or Dennis would DJ, and we had a live band. And punks came, indie kids came, the kids that would go to dance to house music came. You know, it was just like a very open-minded time, and it was such a communal, wonderful time. It's like between like 2003 and 2007, 8, around that time. It's an honor and a privilege that I was a part of that. And I have the fondest memories of that time, where music once again like came alive in my life, and I was a part of something bigger again, and felt very at home. And yeah, that's we started that label to document that time and that scene.
I see. Yeah, I think Dennis is a really inspirational figure, isn't he? I mean, he's a great character, and it must have been great to have worked with him. And did you actually play in a lineup of The Refused at one point?
I did one show.
One show.
Yeah, in '97. I was there for a second, you know, but I wasn't a good fit, I suppose. But I mean, Dennis is still one of my best friends, and he's like it's like my bigger brother, you know. We said that to each other like not that long ago. Like, can you imagine? Like, we've been able to stand each other for more than 20 years now. That must mean something.
And
We're
be
like,
in a
yeah.
band together and run a record label together and still be friends.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I'm very grateful for his friendship and for the fact that, we shared the world for 11 years together with the band.
Yeah.
And we've seen all sides of each other.
Yeah.
And still our relationship has just grown as friends. And I'm so grateful. Like I'm very, very lucky. So having, a label, club, band together, we've been through a lot.
Yeah, that's fantastic, And what a great band, International Noise Conspiracy. I mean, we're talking about great bass players and drummers, and Ludwig Darkberg, who I know is now in Free Fall, or was in Free Fall. Now he's in Indochine in France, doing very well. But
doing very well, to say the least. Yeah. Good for him. I'm very, very happy that all of a sudden he just ended up in the biggest band in France. Like, how do you even do that? I can't even, make it to a mid-sized band in, I don't know, in somewhere, but he's in the biggest band in France. I think it's amazing. I'm so happy for him, He, the first album he did with them went platinum. I mean, in France, but I mean, still, how cool is that? So Dennis is doing Refused, and Ludwig is in Indochine, and Sara, who was also in the International Noise Conspiracy, she's in Invasion with Dennis. Yeah. So I'm so happy that like all of them went on to do cool things by their own merit, on their own merits, I think that's amazing. And that we're still like every time I talk to Dennis, I get happy. Same thing with Sara or Ludwig. We have this bond, like there's no weird sort of dynamics where we can't be happy for each other. Yeah. It's just, I love that.
It's great that you had all these good, strong characters in the band. I think it came across, especially live, the dynamic was so good, So you've gone on to play with some amazing bands. You're after International Noise Conspiracy. You've played with CSS, which was again that was an unusual one. Great Brazilian electronic pop punk band. I mean, they were again a fantastic live act. How did you get to play with them?
Well, it was one of those weird things where I played with them in 2011 and 2012 as a hired gun, that kind of thing. And I had seen them live in Sweden in 2008, and I thought they were great. I remember them being like, this is odd, this is cool. Like, they look amazing, they sound different, they have like this punky, sort of cut and pasty, fun attitude towards music, but it's electronic, and it got there's like a Latin vibe in it, and I was blown away. I thought they were great. And in 2011, my friend Anders, who is in Invasion, he just called me out of the blue and said like, hey, have you heard that band CSS from Brazil? And I was like, yeah, saw them live. They were great, they're going on a European tour, and their bass player quit, like just before the tour, and they're desperately looking for a bass player to fill in on the European tour. And I thought maybe you would be interested in that. I was like, you know what? I have an email to their tour manager or whatever. And I just dropped them a line and said, like, I heard you're looking for a bass player. What's the setup? What's the, when's the tour and all that? And they said like, yeah, we know a little bit about you and the International Noise Conspiracy. We know about that. Like, the tour starts in 2 weeks. Do you want to do it? Here's a set list, 20 something songs. And I was like, sure. I never met a person in the band. I never met anyone in the organization. Just booked me like a flight ticket to the first show in Berlin. And that was not even like, I'm like, are we going to practice? No, just show up. And I learned the songs. And I just walked in for a sound check. Like, hi, I'm your new bass player. I was like, like, set up my gear. And just like,
wow.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that was pretty nerve-wracking. But, I mean, love Fox and Louisa and Carol and Anna and JR. Like, I love them. They're greatest people, and they're so much fun to be around and so inspiring. And we had so much fun playing live together. It felt like such an honor and a privilege to have toured with them. And I still, I connect so much with them. They're like my Brazilian soul sisters,
I mean, they were such a fantastic live act, I mean, they were so colourful and vibrant.
Yeah.
What a great band. And I mean, pick us a track that you enjoyed from CSS. Give us a...
Yeah, I would like to play City Girl then, because it was the new single when I joined the band. It was like the song that I had heard, and all of a sudden I had heard it, and all of a sudden, like, I was supposed to go on tour and play it. It was just one of those things where, like, it's not only the music coming to me, like, I came to the music as well.
I wish I would dye my hair pink, put on black lipstick, 'cause I don't give a shit. I wish I would dye my hair pink, put on black lipstick, no one would give a shit. Short shorts, short skirts, flower tops, skinny shirts, in the big city, nothing hurts, nothing hurts. When I was a little girl, I wanted to be a citizen of the world, being busy with my job and my gay friends, laughing and drinking with my one-night stands. Why are you looking as if I was abnormal? It's alright, I never tried to be normal. I just wanna walk around free on my own, place to pay my bills with the money I made. I wish I would dye my hair pink, put on black lipstick, no one would give a shit. Short shorts, short skirts, flower tops, skinny shirts, in the big city, nothing hurts, nothing hurts. I wish I would dye my hair pink, put on black lipstick, no one would give a shit. Short shorts, short skirts, flower tops, skinny shirts, in the big city, nothing hurts.
And you've also worked with Nicke Andersson for Imperial State Electric and one of his projects. Tell us about that.
Nicke is one of those guys that I've been aware of him since the early 90s, since, his days in Entombed and all that, and Helicopters, of course. And one day, I was still living in Umeå at the time, 2010, I believe this was. All of a sudden, Nicke calls me out of the blue and just like, hi, like, what's up? When we chat, we just talk about Kiss most of the time. That's what we do. And I was thinking like, oh, another Kiss talk. Why not? And then it was like, so we're recording a new album with Imperial State Electric. We're doing it now. And Dolph, the bass player, who is now in the Helicopters, by the way, in a very incestuous scene in Sweden. He's on tour because he was in the Datsuns too. But we're going on with the recording as of now. And can you come down to Stockholm and play bass for a couple of songs for the new Imperial State Electric album? And I was like, okay, let's day after tomorrow and one day and we'll record 2 songs. And he had like a plan, exactly this is what we're going to do. I was like, yeah. And he sent me a demo with 2 songs where he played everything and it sounded amazing. And I was like, what am I going to do? So I called him and said, like, this sounds so good. Your bass playing is great. What's my angle? Like, why don't you do this just yourself? And why did you pick me? And it's like, he said something like, you're really good at playing the riff, almost playing the riff, and then doing things in between. Just play those songs like you would play them. And I was like, okay. And I just flew down, and me and Thomas and the drummer, that's Thomas, and Nicke, we spent the day in the studio and just banged out 2 songs for the Pop War album. And yeah, that was one of those like amazing experiences that this living legend, Nicke Andersson, who's done so much amazing music, all of a sudden, like, I'm in the back of his head somewhere, like as a go-to bass player. That's a big thing for me, you know? So I was very happy to come down to Stockholm and record that. So yeah, that was cool.
Give us your choice of one of the songs that you played your interpretation of the bass riff on.
Yeah, it's called Divide and Conquer from Pop War, and it's a great song.
Yeah, that was a fantastic track there by Imperial State Electric, Deride and Conquer. But I'd like you to tell me a little bit about our mutual friends, The Most. We've played them on the podcast for years, seen them play over here in London, and a great bunch. And yeah, so I'd like you to tell me a little bit about your time with The Most.
That was a good time. I was still living in Umeå at the time, and as I said, Umeå was not a very big place, but it had a lot of culture and a lot of music, at least when I lived there. And The Most, they were a bit like older guys. They were not a part of the punk or hardcore scene, but they had been into punk and doing music since late 70s, early 90s. And they used to play the Ny Våg club nights. We thought they were just like a great band and a great fit because everybody was doing kind of conceptual music anyway. And all of a sudden those mod guys just show up and play excellent, danceable, soulful rock music. And we loved them and kind of just got connected. And then their bass player moved to Stockholm, and Frans, the singer guitar player, just called me one day and asked if I wanted to fill in. And I did, and I stuck with them for a while, and it was one of those like one thing leads to the other situations. And I stayed with them for a couple of years and did one LP and one, like we played mostly in Sweden, but we also went to Berlin, and we played in Liverpool. We tried to sort of do as much as we could on our terms, and it's great. And they're still a band, and they're still making music, and it's all good, and it all sounds amazing. And I'm a very I'm lucky to have been there as well. They have another bass player now, Martin. He's great.
Well, they're great band, and I'd like to play a track which I think features a great little bass riff from you, which is very much in the John Entwistle mode. This is The Most, and a track taken from their Autodestructive Art album. This is really good.
Sign up for the big sensation. Don't cry, 'cause I know you got nothing to say. Stand up for the new revelation. I'm down now, you think the world is at your feet. You're getting good at this now. Really good. You kick me when I'm down. Really good. You're getting good at this now. Really good. You kick me when I'm down. Really good. Turn down your great expectations. Tune in and listen to what I gotta say. Slow down, you might trip and fall. Hit me, this is your chance and I'll be away. You're getting good at this now. Really good. You kick me when I'm down. Really good. Yeah, you're getting good at this now. Really good. You kick me when I'm down. Really good. You're getting good at this now. Really good. You kick me when I'm down. Really good. You're getting good at this now. Really good. You kick me when I'm down. Really good. Now. Really good. You kick me when I'm down. Really yeah, you're getting good at this now. Really good. You kick me when I'm down. Really
It's good fun to go through some of your musical adventures, and it just reminds me of we have another mutual friend is Dick York, and you played with Cryssis.
I did, yeah.
Cryssis and Dick was actually my very first interview special in my podcast was with Dick York and an artist called David Apps, one of his friends, and Dick was my very first interview guest, you know. And,
victim, guest, whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
And I did a couple of gigs with TV Smith of the Adverts. I did promotions, and Dick was the support band, and he was in a band called Stayed Pressed, like a sort of mod revival.
Yeah, a mod band, like yeah, for sure, yeah.
And then he was doing Cryssis, and he did a couple of shows with me in Southend with TV Smith, and lovely guy, and he's a great songwriter. And I didn't know, but you actually toured with him as well. And I know they're very big in Germany, out of all places, aren't they? A very big band.
Yeah. I did. I did one album and one long tour and a few gigs. That was because of the drummer, basically. The drummer Vom Ritchie, who plays drums in Cryssis. He was in a band in the UK called Doctor and the Medics. I'm a fan too. And then he ended up joining Die Totenhosen, which is in the UK. I don't know how well known they are, but in Central Europe, they're massive. And they've been massive for 30 plus years. They're a stadium punk band, like they're bigger than Offspring, bigger than Green Day. They were like, we actually, with the International Noise Conspiracy, we did 2 tours supporting them in Germany. And that was crazy. It was the first time we were on like stadiums and big venues like that. And I befriended the drummer Vom, who is Stephen George Ritchie is his real name, and he's from the UK, but he moved to Germany to become a rock star, and and he did. We did those tours and all that. And all of a sudden, I remember I was rehearsing with the Most. And then I get a text message from a number in Germany that I don't have on my phone. And I was like, hi, this is Vom from Die Totenhosen. How are you doing? Like, blah, blah, blah. I have this band called Cryssis, and we're going on tour, and we don't have a bass player. Like, would you mind coming down to Germany and play a few shows with us? I was, yeah, sure, why not? Because I remembered him, that he was like funny and outgoing and all that. That was how it started. That's how I met Dick and Tripp, also the other guys of the band. So I flew down to Düsseldorf to rehearse with them, and they had given me the songs, and I learned them, and we rehearsed at Vom's place. And it was funny because I asked him after, because me and Vom, we became close friends, and we still are. But I asked him then, like, okay, what made you, like, of all bass players in the world, like, you decided to sort of just send me a text and see if I was up for it. He was like, well, like when we toured with the house and you walked in with a Discharge shirt, I knew that we were going to work together. I was like, all right, fair enough.
Fantastic. Well, I mean, it's great, to see that you work with Cryssis. I said Dick's an excellent songwriter, and you picked a really, really good track that really, I think, highlights his songwriting skills.
Yeah.
You picked "Time of Our Lives" from their "Curseful Nights" album. So should we hit that?
We should hit that.
This is Cryssis, "Time of Our Lives." So we were talking about bands like Die Toten Hosen and Indochine and all these huge bands which sing in their native language. And in Sweden, like Håkan Hellström, they're playing stadiums and massive bands. But especially in England, maybe in America too, we're not very good on dealing with foreign language bands. It's very rare that they transfer well over to our sales, musical sales, But obviously, Gatuplan, you've decided to sing in Swedish. Yeah. Did you consider the options of what would it be like commercially if you were to sing produce an album in Swedish, or did you think about the language part of it?
I did, especially because I started writing the songs for that album while I was still living in the US. There's always been great punk bands in Sweden since the 70s and 80s doing punk in Swedish that was very influential in my life. Songs and bands and all that really spoke to me. And since I wanted to sort of reboot myself, I decided to basically go back to the roots to do Swedish punk, because I've done that before. And also because, to pay tribute to that tradition. I felt like if I'm doing stuff in Swedish, I won't feel the same pressure as in trying to sort of compete with people who are doing punk rock in English. If it's, you know, it's their first language, it's where they come from, it's the most natural thing. For me, it would have been not an obstacle, but in a way, I thought it would be less pressure on me for some reason. And I just wanted to do this music for fun and for a sort of, as I said, a reboot in my own life with music and all that, and make music with people that I really enjoy spending time with. So I understand that it's like, you know, why would people in the UK and the US care about rock music done in other languages than English? I totally get that, because that's the origin of that music and that culture, and it's so tied in with language and how you phrase stuff and how you sing, and words that would never work in a conversation work so well in a song, and like having positive Gatuplan reviews coming in from Germany in German or in English or in Spanish, it's like, wow. For me, it's just like a big bonus on the side. I never expected that to happen, but it did, and I'm happy. And people ask me, are you going to do something in English? And then I'm like, I don't know, maybe German, maybe Spanish, you know, like I can take it any direction at this point. Whatever happens. But it was basically back to the roots, paying tribute to my Swedish punk roots, mixing it up with what I've learned so far, I guess.
Well, it's good. It's good to see that, you know, and I think musically it does transcend sort of languages. It's one of those albums which I think is going to get great reviews regardless. It just works. And I think, to me, maybe it's different because, like I said, I am aware, I'm not naive about it, that foreign language records don't transfer well over here in the UK. But, you know, I mean, again, Retrosonic podcast, our last episode, we had bands singing in Brazilian, there's French, we have everything. We've got, it doesn't matter.
I agree. And I'm very much of a lyrics person. I love lyrics and I love storytelling and stuff like that in music. But sometimes I just need to know a few keywords and a few sentiments of a song to get the song, like emotionally. Yeah. And that's how I connected with, you know, a lot. I don't speak German, but I listen to a lot of German music, like sung in German, because I think it's just a language that works really well with music. I don't speak Spanish, but I listen to Spanish, people singing in Spanish. And to me, it's just like, I get what the song is about and I get the emotion of the song. And sometimes that's enough for me.
This is a good time to pick a Gatuplan track.
It is, yeah.
And let's pick one. Well, you've chosen one as well, which I love. I love this track, and you don't need to speak Swedish to understand what this is about. This is Min Revolution.
Yes.
1977 var året då punkarna kom och 1991 så blev jag en av dem för jag var så jag var blyg. Ett mobboffer som drömde om en punkattityd och skrev mina låtar i smyg. Efter det så har jag levt mitt liv i marginalen. Anti-punk-punkar, kör en rassens själ. Det har varit galet, gammal nog att det burit en nej till egen-pinn. Men det heter fuck the world och inte for the win. Att jag ser att jag har i mitt liv utanför jag blir till men jag är punk till jag rör. Kött allt vad det är, kött allt vad det själv. Strömmen och drömmen och skriv så de hör. Om jag kan dansa till den är den min revolution. En internationell odjudskonspiration. Vi drog ut i strid, ungdom på glid. De kallade oss mods. Det var vi mot världen, ganska dåliga odds. Ett gäng drömmare som mest av allt bara ville vara som The Clash, The Who, Era, Ernest och Che Guevara. De stoppade oss på gränsen, vi var visst terrorister. De hade inget på oss men det var något de inte visste. Att om jag kan dansa, då är det min revolution. Om jag kan dansa, då är det min revolution. Revolution. Jag ser att jag har i mitt liv utanför mig till den jag är punkt till jag rör. Fortsätt att vara vän, fortsätt att vara dig själv. Och strömmen och drömmen och skriv kraschlandade på en soffa, kunde inte ta mig upp och inte ut så särskilt ofta. Tittade i spegeln och jag tittade på mig med samma blick som hon i kassan när det medger sig. Hjärtat krossat igen utan ens spänn inte med en vän. Han klappade mig på axeln, sa du kommer igen och att kärleken kommer, kärleken går. Men en mick och en rick vet du alltid vart de står. Och om jag kan dansa, då är det min revolution. Om jag kan dansa, då är det min revolution. Att jag ser, att jag hör i mitt liv utanför mig till vem jag är upp till alla. Fortsätt att vara vän, fortsätt att vara själv. Och på strömmen, mot drömmen och skrik så de hör. Om jag kan dansa, är det min revolution. Om jag kan dansa, är det min revolution. Om jag kan dansa, är det min revolution. Det är min revolution. Nu är det väl revolution på gång. Jag tycker att väntan börjar bli lång.
That's such a great track. I mean, I think the way you're phrasing it, it's a sort of almost like a rap version. But again, with the Swedish, it just sounds fantastic. You know, it works. And
Thank you. Thank you.
I love that song.
Yeah, I do think that you being from the UK, you have an ear for probably like the grime thing and like very British form of rap meets pop music instead of beats. That's been a thing in the UK for like almost 20 years at this point. And in Sweden, it's not so common. So people hear like, but you're kind of rapping. But to me, it's, yeah, maybe if you're like a person more rooted in rock music, that's what you hear. Yeah. So it's more of a interpretation matter, I think, when it comes to the way I sing. But I'm very influenced by a lot of like the British, the grime thing, especially like Mike Skinner of the Streets. That stuff really blew my mind. Like when I heard it the first time, that was just like one of those light bulb moments when I heard A Grand on Come for Free the first time. That album is just like, it's so good still. And then of course, like I like people like the King Blues, I like MIA, the Skint, stuff like that just really resonated with me for Gatuplan. And then I mixed it up with my Swedish roots and like American sort of Californian punk, whatever. So yeah, but doing it in Swedish gives it its own like both limitation and identity at the same time.
And we talked about the sort of ska and influences, and one of your sort of favourite records and that we were talking about over before that we did the podcast is The Specials, which again, great band from my youth, that sort of 1978, 79 time. You know, what a fantastic band. And this is a tough choice, but give us one of your favourite Specials tracks.
Well, I really struggled with that one because I believe that the first Specials album is one of the most complete albums ever recorded in history of music. There's not a bad song on the entire album. The production is great. I think it's Elvis Costello actually produced it, at least like engineered or recorded it. But all the songs are great. The attitude is great. The lyrics are great. The playing is great. Everything, like the sleeve, everything comes together in such a magnificent statement. It's one of the most complete. It's like a Sgt. Pepper thing, you know. It's so good. And I tried to just like come up with what song is good, like what stands out, and I just had to pick one by random. Like, you know, I could just sort of just like I could be anything, but any song, but it's gonna be Nightclub.
Nightclub, is this your place to be? Nightclub,
Yeah, fantastic. That's The Specials and Nightclub. And as a musician, were you with Gatuplan, where we talked about the sort of cover art, and we've already discussed the production of it, and the track listing is fantastic. You know, do you consciously sort of try and make that perfect album? I know sometimes bands put albums together and they're a collection of songs, but you know, do you sort of think, I got to make this, got to be right? The track listing, the sequencing, the sound, the production, the cover art, it's a whole package. You know, you conscious of that when you're sort of producing the album?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, the idea develops during the process of making it. But when I started working on the album, I had a very clear vision. Like, I wanted to sound like this, and I wanted to look like that. It was very, very clear to me what I wanted to do. And I do think it comes from like being in bands like the International Noise Conspiracy or The Most, where everything comes together, visuals and music and attitude and whatever. So this was a natural progression from that, you know, but more, perhaps a bit more personal this time or whatever. But yeah, definitely. I really like the album format still. Like, I'm also a singles guy, but I like the pacing of an album and how you sort of make your way through ups and downs and all that. So yeah, very conscious decision for sure about everything about Gatuplan is.
Yeah. Let's play another little track from the album, Didi Ramone. I mean, you released this as a single.
Yep. Well, I mean, the song is just like, it's not really about Didi Ramone. The song is more, it's a punk rock love song, because he was so good at writing those love songs with a weird twist to them. You know, it was always like some kind of dark undertone in his lyrics. And I wanted to write a punk rock love song in the spirit of Didi. And, you know, it's easy to romanticize a guy like that for being, you know, an artistic genius. And of course, I stole his style completely and all that. But I, at the same time, like, yeah, he's like this bipolar, bisexual drug addict with a switchblade, you know. It's just like, okay, like he works better in theory in my life. So that was like, my idea was that the song is called Didi Ramone because I wanted to sort of write a punk rock love song in the spirit of Didi Ramone's songs and pay tribute to the Ramones with that as well, because Ramones music is a part of my DNA. It's a part of who I am. And Ramones was a very, very sort of founding influence on Gatuplan, because Ramones had a lot of emotion in their lyrics. There's a lot of very emotional lyrics and melodically driven vocals. So that was an important influence for sure. And why not go all the way and write a song called Didi Ramone, you know? I mean, on the next album, there might be a song called Lemmy.
Yeah, Bass Players Union.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Oh, yeah.
Fan om jag har så mycket jag kan ge. Att ta ut förlust i förskott, det är jag van med. Jag fattar att jag inte är ditt förstahandsval. Och jag kan inte leva upp till mina arbetarklassideal. Jag hade varit en fara på ett bygge. Jag hade sågat av mig foten på ett kalhygge. Jag hade kommit för sent om jag jobbar på fabrik. Jag skyllde på bussen men jag ville inte dit. Det finns så många bättre där ute. Men om du ger mig 2 minuter, då ska jag sjunga en punkrock-kärlekssång. En punkrock-kärlekssång skriven av Didi Ramone. Så får du vara hon jag sjunger om i en punkrock-kärlekssång. Punkrock-kärlekssång.
Was there any other sort of song or anything else that's sort of had a big influence on your musical or even your life? Is there a song that's had an influence on your lifestyle, or not just your music, but is there anything that sort of had such a big impact on you over the years?
Yeah, one band that I keep coming back to, that's also from my teenage years, and a band that sort of redefined punk for me, both musically and when it came to an attitude or what you want to say, is Leeds' own Chumbawamba. They were incredibly influential for me when I was a teenager, because I had already come into that sort of more traditional, like 77 punk, and as we talked about earlier, the Discharge stuff. And all of a sudden, here's a band that other punks are telling me about that's sort of like the best kept secret of the scene, but they don't sound like a punk band. But they were friends with Crass, apparently, and they wanted to be like a northern Crass, but they wanted to make punk music out of contemporary pop music, done as a collective of 8 people, mixing in some kind of like left-wing theater thing in their music. And in '94, they released an album called Anarchy that really, wow, that's also one of those albums that, like, it's like the soundtrack of my youth in a way. When I listen to it, I am 17 again. It's one of those things where, and I hated being 17. It sucked. Being a teenager sucked. But it's just like they awoke a kind of curiosity in me, like that I need to be open-minded for music. I need to be open. You never know what's there, because their lyrics were fantastic and very connected to what was going on in the world. And they were trying to sort of push the envelope in so many ways. And I realized with Chumbawamba that punk is what you make of it. Getting the Anarchy album in '94, I bought it together with the Refused album, actually. It was just like 2 CDs. Like I think it was like my birthday or whatever. I got some money and I got gonna get a Refused CD and this band Chumbawamba that people told me about. And hearing that first song on Anarchy, it's a song called Give the Anarchist a Cigarette. I never heard anything like this, but this is also punk. Wow.
Well, let's hear it. Let's hear Chumbawamba and Give the Anarchist a Cigarette.
Nothing ever burns down by itself. Every fire needs a little bit of help. Nothing ever burns down by itself. Every fire needs a little bit of Give the anarchist a cigarette. 'Cause that's as close as he's ever gonna get. Give the anarchist a cigarette. Bobby just hasn't learned it yet. Give the anarchist a cigarette. The times are changing, but he just forgets. Give the anarchist a cigarette. He's gonna choke on his harmonica, Albert. Nothing ever burns down by itself. Every fire needs a little bit of help. Nothing ever burns down by itself. Every fire needs a little bit of Give the anarchist a cigarette. A county sick for the spoiled brat. Give the anarchist a cigarette. We'll get Albert to write you a check. Give the anarchist a cigarette. And he'll be burning up the air in his personal jet. Give the anarchist a cigarette. You know I hate every pop star that I ever met. Nothing ever burns down by itself. Every fire needs a little bit of help. Nothing ever burns down by itself. Every fire needs a little bit of
It's been thoroughly enjoyable chatting to you, Inge. Really enjoyed it. It's there's loads of great music for our listeners to follow up on and investigate further. And,
Yeah.
I mean, loads of stuff to sort of check out. Loads of different genres, and I said it's been great chatting. And thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me, Steve. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. So what I'll do, everybody, I'll put a feature at retromanblog.com, and I'll put links to what Inge's up to, and where you can buy the Gatuplan album. And I said, Check back through our archive. There's lots of stuff there, loads of Swedish and loads of foreign language music as well for you to enjoy. So check out Retrosonic Podcast at Spotify, SoundCloud, or Apple Podcast, iTunes. And so let's end where we came in. Let's end with another track from the fantastic Gatuplan album. So Inge, this is your choice.
Yeah.
Give us your choice to end the episode on.
Yeah, let's go out with a bang. This song is called Cash and Dom Toss. It's the third song on the album, and that's normally in the album days where you place the single. Just ended up there, but it was the last song that I think I completed before the album was, when it was done. Like, this is when I had that one, I knew I had the whole album. So therefore it means something to me just because of that, that when I wrote that, I knew that I had the whole album. So yeah.
Well, let's hear it. And thanks again, Inge. All the best to you.
Thank you so much, Steve, for having me, and it's been a pleasure.
Thanks. And let's play out with Gatuplan and
Cash and Dom Toss.
Cash and dom toss, 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 cash and dom toss. Och de kommer aldrig tillbaks. De kommer aldrig tillbaks. Det är dyrt att vara fattig i ett rikt land där de rikaste äter ur de fattigas hand. Där pengar rinner uppåt ifrån botten till toppen, ifrån jobbarna till bankerna på Cayman Island. Bland alla tallar och granar finns det så många gamar. Cash and dom toss, 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 cash and dom toss. Och de kommer aldrig tillbaks. De kommer aldrig tillbaks. Reglerna är skrivna av dem som alltid vinner. Se hur allting vi byggt upp tillsammans försvinner. När de skär ner är det vi som får sår. De sticker med vinsten men skulden blir vår.